the Hawarden City Council meeting to order on Wednesday, May the 13th, 2020 at 5:35 p.m. All present are Counsel and Travis and Jacob as staff, and Mike DeBryan as staff, and some other folks have joined us publicly, so we welcome them. We will start with the first standard agenda item. Agenda item number 1A, approval of the April 22nd, 2020 City Council meeting minutes.
So moved. This is Travis.
Moved by Travis, seconded by Tim. All in favor of the April 22nd City Council meeting minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Aye.
Hearing no opposition, that passes 5-0. Next is the claims for payment. As we always tell the public, you've had those in your packets since Friday. I'll start with Rob for questions. Any questions, Rob?
No questions.
Jen, any questions?
No questions.
John, any questions?
None, thank you.
Travis, any questions?
None, thank you.
Tim, any questions?
No questions. So moved.
There's been a motion by Tim. Is there a second?
I'll second it. Rob.
Seconded by Rob. All in favor of claims for payment for today, March the 13th, 2020, say aye.
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 Those opposed? Hearing none, that passes 5-0. Open business from the community. I'm the only one in the City Council chambers. There are no public members here with me. Anyone that are on our Zoom meeting tonight wish to make any comments from the community? Hearing none, we'll move on to the mayor's report. We as a community in the state of Iowa are honoring our police departments with the flags being flown at half-mast. It is Peace Officer Memorial Day and Police Week from May the 10th to the 15th. And we give thanks to our police officers, both present and past, for their commitment to our safety. We thank the many parents that are teaching and parenting their children. And we thank the teachers, administration, and staff for all of their efforts in keeping our children learning during these difficult times. To the senior class of 2020, wow, it's been a memorable ride for each and every one of you. We congratulate you on your successes with athletics, speech, music, the arts, and academics. Your senior year with all of this going on will certainly be memorable to you and your families. We wish for all of you success in your future endeavors. During these times, I want to remind everyone to call and check on family members and friends, fellow church members, and your neighbors. We all need to be cared for, and if you're having difficulties, please reach out to get yourself some help. C.S. Lewis is quoted by saying, "Hardships often prepare ordinary people for an extraordinary destiny." So please use care and stay safe. And lastly, as Tim had mentioned earlier, we encourage everyone, you can absentee vote for the primaries that are in June. All you need to do, you should have received something in the mail if you are a party-affiliated voter. Please take advantage of that. That will help in the safety in the regular primary vote for June. The county is very expedient in getting you the ballots. It's a nice and safe and easy way to make your votes known. We move on to staff reports. We'll start, please, with Travis, City Works.
First, I wanted to cover the power outage that part of the town had last day afternoon. A lot of you have seen the H&D Underground installing fiber duct for Premier Communications all through town. They had a mishap where our crew had marked the lines, but they were off about 2 feet from where the the marks were from where the lines actually were. No one was hurt, but there was damage to one of the cables. We rerouted the power and got everybody back on as soon as we could. That let us fix the problem. We got that the cable fixed and everything back to normal today. So, I also want to remind everyone of the citywide cleanup, June 5, 6, and 7, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. And we'll still have Tim Erickson at the gate. He'll keep his social distancing, but he'll still be able to help people, tell them where to dump and make sure they're dumping the right items. Household hazardous material drop-off will be June 12th from 1 to 4 at the City Street Shop. That's 717 7th Street. Ads will run in the paper as well as Facebook. Mueller Pallets of Sioux Falls, they're still planning on coming down to grind our huge tree pile. They were all set to come down 2 months ago when the owners decided to keep their workers in Sioux Falls because of the COVID-19. So I was told we'd be the first on the list when they lifted their travel ban and let their workers go to other communities. Ricardo, if you haven't heard, Ricardo Topete, our cemetery caretaker, utility worker, he gave us 2-week notice. His landscaping business has increased to where he needs to devote more time to that. We wish him the best of luck in the future, and we'll miss him. And since then, we've hired Jared Gruen as his replacement. Jared has worked for the city previously as a lineman. We believe his utility background will be an asset when he transitions to help other departments in the late winter or the late fall and winter months. The transmission line project has been completed. We had a outage last Thursday evening at 11:55. It was a planned outage. It went very well. We were able to get our work done and powered back on our new line in about 30 minutes. So the new power lines are energized, and that's what's feeding our community. The old transmission line is de-energized for some tree clearance and maintenance. This line will be continued to be inspected and maintained, and we'll keep it as a backup feed for now. We've got started on the Dry Creek crossing, Highway 12 bridge by Line and Implement. GM Contracting, they've got the line under the creek, and now they're working to go under Highway 12 and the railroad tracks. Parking lot, as you can see, that's started as well. Grading is almost finished. Conduit and light pole bases will be dug on Friday, and firm foundation, they're planning to start concrete prep on Monday. That's all I have.
Thanks, Travis. We certainly will miss Ricardo Topete. He's been a valued employee and has done a wonderful job in being with us in the city. And then, obviously, as you mentioned, we welcome Jared Gruen back. It's been a while since he's been with us, so nice to have him back with us. Jacob, you'll probably ask some questions when we get to number 7 with the budget amendment. Do you have anything prior to that to offer?
Correct. I'm just going to wait until then for my section.
Okay, thank you very much. That brings us to Mike DeBryan, please.
Just an update on the census. Hawarden right now has a 69.7 census response so far. We're ranked 139th highest city with a response rate in Iowa. There is 789 cities that are behind us in that. So I think this just goes to a credit to the complete count team and the guys that are out there getting the information out. Larry feeds Travis. Travis has it all scheduled and gets it out. So my thanks to all of them. We know that this next census is going to be important for the future of our community and future dollars. So thanks to all of them.
Mike, a question with that. When is the ending date for that? Do you know that off the top of your head?
think they're looking at October. What they'll do is they'll do the online and phone in for a while, then they'll actually go door to door. And I think they extended that deadline till October. We did get an email the other day on how many people we needed to have counted in Hawarden yet to do 100%. So how they know how many people we need already. But from those numbers, we would have increased in population 25 or 50 people. But we're hoping there's more than that.
Okay. Thanks for those people that are helping to promote that. Do the council members have any comments or questions for the staff members before we move on? Hearing none, we'll move on then to agenda item number 3. This is a gas rate study presented by Dave Berg of the Dave Berg Consulting LLC from Rosemont, Minnesota. David, thank you so much for being with us tonight. We look forward to the information you're going to offer.
All right, thanks very much. Everybody can hear me? Okay. You should have, I'm going to share my screen, and I've got a PDF of the report, which should have been in all of your packets. And basically what I'm going to do is walk through some of the important items within the report, just to give you a little a summary of what we looked at relative to your gas rates. So hopefully now you should all be able to see a copy of the report. And like I said, if you've got it in your packet, we'll look at that as well. So when we look at rates for any utility, there's basically two things that we are concerned about. One is, are they paying in enough money? The rates are the price tag that you put on the product that you sell, and that's how you generate your revenue. And then the second thing is, from a perspective of what we call cost of service. That's basically looking at different kinds of customers within the system by class to see if the revenue that you're getting from them is somewhat reasonable relative to the cost that's incurred to serve them. Now, the interesting thing is you basically charge everybody the same rate. So you don't have any rate differential between different kinds of customers, and I'll discuss that briefly at the end. But so the first thing we want to think about is relative to whether or not your existing rates are going to generate enough dollars. Now, a couple of things that have impacted your revenue and your expenses. From a revenue perspective, we raised the monthly customer charge effective at the beginning of this calendar year from $5 to $9 for all of the customers. And I basically want to say I applaud you for having made that move. You know, that $5 fixed fee was relatively low, and it was really warranted in the fact that we're looking at a fairly significant increase from Northern Natural relative to transportation rates for gas. Now, what we modeled in the analysis is the interim rates, which is about a 77% increase from Northern Natural. What they'll ultimately end up is sort of difficult to say. You don't know what FERC is ultimately going to do. But, so we included the interim rates, like I said, which was a 77% increase. So if we look at essentially, well, let me also add that if Northern Natural were to get everything that they asked for, which is very unusual, basically annual costs would go up about $10,000 more per year. With the 77% increase, they're going up about $55,000. So that $10,000 more, if Northern Natural were to get everything they dreamed of, wouldn't be a significant hit to you beyond what we've already modeled in the analysis. This is, and I apologize, I noticed that I got a typo. The years in my table are incorrect. but this is in section 2 on page 5. The year actually should say fiscal 2020 through 2024. And I'll fix that. This is currently a draft report, so I'll be finalizing after the meeting tonight. So when you look, you can notice that this is at existing rates. So a couple of things. We didn't assume any growth in sales to your customers. We assumed a steady level of natural gas commodity costs, which means that your gas adjustment part of the revenue doesn't change. So you'll notice that the operating revenues are the same every year. And again, this is actually 2020 through 2024 projections. So we're at about $1.1 million of projected revenue every year. But obviously the operating expenses go up. And they're going up in 2020 because there's essentially, with what's in the fiscal year, there's 6 months worth of the Northern Natural increase in the first year. Fiscal 21 and beyond, there would be a full year. So that's why you see kind of that big jump in operating expenses from the first year to the second year. That reflects a full year of Northern Natural increase as opposed to just half a year, because these are fiscal years which end in June. But you've got pretty strong operating results. You know, when you look there, we've got the change in net position is positive all the way through, and even in the last year, it's still about 10% of revenue. So you've got pretty strong operating results. The other thing is when we look at your cash reserves, you'll notice that we started at about 900,000, and it builds up to about 1.3 million, which is about 120% of revenues. And that is strong, but not over the top, really cash reserves for a utility your size. Smaller utilities really need a larger amount of reserves as compared to revenues than bigger utilities do, because there's more opportunity for a single event to kind of have an impact on a larger percentage of operating revenue dollar basis for a smaller utility than necessarily it is for a large utility. But bottom line is you're in really good shape financially. The numbers and stuff going forward. So overall, there really isn't. I'm not recommending any kind of a rate increase for gas. The other thing that's great for your customers, because you just pass through the commodity cost, but obviously one of the things about having a stinky economy is that our natural gas prices have stayed really low because, quite frankly, supply is exceeding demand in many ways. So, your customers are seeing, pretty good bills. They probably didn't even notice your increased customer charge because the commodity charge has been and continues to be pretty darn low. Maybe I should ask if there's any questions relative to this aspect of the study before I talk about cost of service. Well, hearing none, we'll proceed. The next thing is relative to what we call cost of service. And in cost of service, excuse me, there we go. What we're looking at is we're basically slicing and dicing the expenses to spread them across different kinds of customers. Now, like I mentioned at the beginning, you don't charge customers a different rate depending upon what they look like. But you do actually have your customers lumped into different groups. And so we looked at, you've got residential, commercial, industrial, and then you have a couple of internal, interdepartmental, and public authority. The interesting thing about this is that those classes were actually more defined by the electric utility, and so they don't necessarily represent oftentimes different usage groupings. For instance, your industrial gas customers aren't not necessarily all big customers. They're all big electric customers, and they've all been categorized the same way as they are for electric within your billing system. Nevertheless, I did do a cost of service analysis based on the existing groupings. And if we look at it in this percentage table, what you can see is, for instance, for the residential class, it's about 59.8% of the cost to serve, and you're getting about 60.7% of revenue from them. In cost of service world, that's really close. So basically, you know, especially for the residential and the commercial, the existing rates really are very, very close to fitting their costs. One of the things is with regard to what is loosely the industrial customers, most of which are relatively large gas users. You'll see there that the revenues are under the allocated cost to serve. Really, the reason for that is because of the single customer charge for all kinds of customers. Larger customers, there's just more fixed cost associated with serving them that warrants having a higher monthly customer charge than you would for a residential. So while that $9 customer charge is perfectly acceptable for residential and commercial, it is warranted to have something a little bit higher for the bigger customers. It's not urgent. In talking with staff, there's a question and some investigation potentially relative to how the billing system may have to handle that, because right now everybody is sort of categorized, like I said, the way they are within the electric. And what you wouldn't want to do is have a higher customer charge, let's say for industrial, and there's one or two customers in there that aren't very big gas users. And so they wouldn't be warranted to have that higher customer charge. So I'm going to give some examples of some changes you could make, but you don't want to make them based on the existing classifications. You'd want to make them based on some classifications I'm going to suggest. And if it's not possible within your billing system, I would say you don't really have to worry about it. And when I get then into the proposed rates, so what you can see here is these are potential revised customer charges. Now, for residential and small commercial, it's still that same $9 customer charge. The difference is I've created a couple of new classes, large commercial and general service. Those don't actually exist within your system right now. And you've got the public authority and the interdepartmental. They would fit based on their usage in one of either the small or large commercial or general service, depending on their usage. But here I have said, for instance, small commercial would be non-residential customers where their peak month usage is less than 500 CCF. And then I've got for large commercial, it's between 500 and 2,000. And then what I'm calling general service would be over 2,000. So it would require a reclassification of your gas customers to do this. But you'll notice that, for instance, for the general service, the biggest customers, I'm suggesting that you could have a $75 monthly customer charge, along with the same commodity rates that you charge now, as opposed to the current $9. If you were to do this, what I show is that it would raise annual gas revenues by about $8,600, which is less than 1%. So, based on the projections, it's not revenue you need. It's just something that you could consider at some point if you want to address this issue. The other thing that I looked at is relative to you have a gas cost recovery fee, and I think it works just fine. You're basically passing through the commodity charges of your gas to your all customers, and I wouldn't change that at all. One of the things just out of, your largest 8 customers is right now that 4 are industrial, 2 are public authority, 1 is interdepartmental, and 1 is commercial. So you can see how the biggest customers are spread across various classes. And so that would be the group that I would put in the largest now. But like I said, only of the 8 biggest, only 4 are in your current industrial class. So just again, if you wanted to make those changes, you'd have to move some people around into some different classes. But all in all, I know you haven't looked at gas rates in a while, and quite frankly, you come out pretty darn good for a utility that hasn't done this kind of a study in quite some time. So with that, I guess I would ask if there's any other questions. Well,
I don't have any questions.
was there a question?
I said I didn't have any questions. Thank you.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yep.
Well, hearing none, I guess my plan is then I will finalize this report. I'll fix a couple of typos that I found, and I'll also give it another review just to make sure, and I'll go ahead and supply that final report to staff, and I certainly appreciate the opportunity to be of service to you folks.
And David, thank you very much. We appreciate you working with our staff. We appreciate our staff being very open with you to make a good gas rate study presentation to us. And as we have done in the past with electrical and others, it's very important for the council and the city staff to be on board with understanding the studies and implementing what we need to do.
I do wish I could have been there personally, even given how far the drive is. It's been 2.5 months since I really left my house, and I've never had anything remotely close to that long in my career. I'm used to traveling, so.
Again, thank you for your time. Anything else from council before we let Dave go?
No, thank you.
All right, I'll stop sharing, give you back control, and I'll leave it at the rest of your meeting. Thank you all.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Dave.
And before we move on, as I just mentioned, I'm really pleased that the staff are so helpful in these situations when we bring outside consultants in to do these studies. And as we've talked the last number of months and years, it's really good for us to do these studies to get everything working financially in each different segment of our utilities and areas. So we move on then to agenda item number 4. This is the approval of a pay request number 8 to Hogan Construction. The amount of $369,591.80. As Mike noted in our report, this is on schedule and on budget. They're doing a nice job. I would entertain a motion for the approval of the pay request number 8 to Hogan Construction.
This is Travis, so moved.
The move by Travis. Is there a
I'll
second? Second by Jen. Thank you. All in favor of that pay request, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That passes. Thank you very much, and we appreciate the good work of Hogan Construction. Hopefully when things quiet down, we can get out and see how things are going personally. And on a side note with that, as Mike has always said at these council meetings, we are represented by DGR on site, so we should have no worries about how things are being handled. Next is a pay request for Knife River for the downtown street overlay project on a $231,639.71. Mike or Travis want to comment on how nice that went with Knife River?
Travis, you want that one?
Yes. You know, we had to push this project back a few times for the weather, and we waited all winter, but I believe it was well worth the wait. The temperature was perfect. Everything, the milling down to the actual paving just went flawlessly. So we're real happy with the end product.
Is there a motion from the council for that pay request?
This is Tim, so moved.
Thank you, Tim. Is there a second?
John, second.
Seconded by John. All in favor then of the pay request to Knife River for the downtown street overlay project, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That passes 5-0. We're spending some more money. This is a final pay request, though, to the Watts Electric Company for the North Transmission Line. The final payment of $44,808.42. Travis had already talked about how nice that turned on and is working for us. Is there a motion for that approval?
This is Rob. I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Rob. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Jen. All in favor of the final pay request to Watts Electric, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Hearing none, that passes 5-0. Again, our thanks to the Watts Electric Company. I understand from staff that they were very good and helpful to work with too. And when they were in town, they were very respectful and did a lot of community business in town. So that's helpful for our community in that regard. Jacob, we're going to wake you up, we hope, out there, because we're going to go to the number 7, the presentation of the fiscal year 2020 budget amendment, and setting a public hearing on the budget amendment for May 27th, and then publish the public hearing notice. Would you like to give us an overview, please, of that?
Sure. So you guys have this in your council packet. We have the budget amendment sheet. It's just one page. Everything after that is kind of an explanation that breaks it all down for each one of those blocks that are in the current amendment phase. So we are increasing our total revenues by a little over $6 million. And $1 million of that is an increase in transfers. So for the expenditures, we are doing a little over $6.4 million. So we are actually spending $63,000 out of reserves, essentially, that are not accounted for as additional revenue. And that's pretty good, since $900,000 of that is the downtown project in there, as you'll see in the capital project line, the expenditures. So as you can look at each one of those lines, the revenues starts first on that top half of the page, and the expenses are down below. A lot of these are from a change in accounting procedure. We had a lot of transfers marked down for our capital project fund, and I actually moved it into actual expenses inside each of the funds. So that's why all of those have an additional increase in the transfer out, actually lowered down, but then it had a $900,000 increase. So it's going to still be a little over $1 million. If anybody has any questions on this, feel free to ask me. I can do my best to answer what each individual thing is. And if not, this will be next council meeting that we will pass this. It'll be a public hearing.
Any questions for Jacob tonight?
Looks good, thanks.
No questions.
I'd move then for a motion for the fiscal year 2020 budget amendment and set the public hearing for May the 27th. Is there a motion for that?
John, so moved.
There's a motion by John. Is there a second?
Second, this is
Jen.
Travis.
Got Jen in there. Thank you very much. Going to call a roll call vote, please, for the presentation then of the fiscal year 2020 budget amendment.
Okay. Clumpy?
Aye.
Feldhacker?
Aye.
Kurth? Aye. Bergsma?
Aye.
Olson?
Aye.
Bless you. On a 5-0 roll call vote, a presentation of the fiscal year 2020 budget amendment and setting the public hearing passes. And again, that'll be on May the 27th. Item number resolution 2024, adding the date of a public hearing and the proposal to enter an amended sewer revenue loan and disbursement agreement and to borrow the money thereunder in a principal amount not to exceed $3,810,000. Mike or Jacob, want to just give an overview? I know that's part of the money back process.
Part of that grant that you get through the state revolving loan fund by doing a wastewater project. As you know, we had looked at different projects for that, and our parking lot is part of that grant process. So what they do is they add on the cost of that, and then they lower your interest rate. So your payments stay the same, and your time period all stays the same. So even though you're adding money, they drop our interest down to like 0.92%. So everything will work out the same.
Is there a motion for resolution 2020-24?
This is Travis. So moved.
Travis,
Second.
who's the second?
Tim.
Tim. Travis made the motion, Tim made the second. Roll call vote, please, for resolution 2020-24.
Olson. Olson.
Aye.
Lucky.
Aye.
Feldhacker.
Aye.
Kurth.
Aye.
Bergsma.
Aye.
On a 5-0 roll call vote, resolution 2020-24 passes. Agenda item number 9 is simply the approval of a fiscal sponsorship. We've made application to the Hawarden Community Foundation grant, and the Hawarden Community Dinner would like to run that money if they receive some through the city. This is obviously we do that quite often for these different groups. Is there a motion for that fiscal sponsorship?
John, so moved.
Motion by John, is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Rob. Got to be quick tonight. Thank you. All in favor of the fiscal sponsorship, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? You're all quick there. That passes 5-0. The resolution 2020-25, this is a resolution for the city acknowledging the satisfaction and releasing the option to buy back the property. Our thanks to Jane Waterman for getting that property and then therein working rather quickly to put a personal house up on that property. So this just releases that from us. Is that correct, Mike?
That's correct.
Okay, is there a motion for resolution 2020-25?
John, so moved.
John moved. Is there a second?
Travis, second.
Travis is second. Roll call vote then, please, for resolution 2020-25.
Kurth.
Aye.
Feldhacker.
Aye.
Bergsma. Bergsma.
Aye.
Clucky.
Aye.
Olson.
Aye.
On a 5-0 roll call vote, resolution 2025 passes. Next, we're going to have some discussion with the COVID types of things that are happening and trying to understand direction for our community. Some direction, or at least conversation with staff and council members on the future use of the community center, possibilities of what to do with the swimming pool to keep social distancing and things safe for our community members. Also, maybe a little bit of, we talked briefly with Mike about, summer rec kind of falls under the city too. And the governor, I know, made a statement today, but did not give the cities much direction. So I'll maybe start with Mike and give us a little staff interpretation and what your thoughts are, if you would, please. And then we'll have a conversation from the council on these directions, please.
Well, Tim emailed me a while back, asked that the discussion of the rental of the community center be put on because We Care does use the community center mostly on a daily basis, unless it's really nice out and the kids are outside. If we do start renting it out, when we do start renting it out, whatever direction we get from the state, we're going to have to follow. And I'm sure cleaning and disinfecting is going to be a big part of that. Obviously, if it's being rented out and social distancing guidelines or groups of 10 are still in play, we're going to have little control over that unless we have a community center monitor in here. In addition, we're looking at the swimming pool, and as we've talked before, we've got the pool full. We've got some chlorine in it to stabilize the water that's there, but we're getting to the point of the year where we're going to have to buy a large amount of chemicals and have some expense on that. We do have some of the lifeguards working right now. They're cleaning, they're doing their normal spring thing. So we're going ahead as if we are going to open, but everybody in the pool world was waiting for the governor to say today, you can open, and it was kind of left that they're still closed until at least the 27th of May. So everybody's kind of up in the air. We had a conference call with all the area pools on Monday, and everybody's waiting for the same thing. Some pools are actually visiting with their councils this week and next week and going to decide if they're even going to go that extra step in opening. I've talked to Jalen Blankenship, who's our swimming pool manager, and some of the guards. They're eager to open. It's not anything that a lack of lifeguards or a lack of enthusiasm is there. We're waiting on the state of Iowa to let us know if it's going to be safe to open, what precautions we're going to have to make. In our conversation with the other pools, a lot of precautions were talked about, whether that's putting up plexiglass shields, having the kids social distance in the pool, only allowing partial capacity, frequent cleaning and sterilizing of the bathrooms, possibility of the guards wearing a mask or a shield. So, but nobody knows what it's really going to look like yet. We were hoping for directions, but didn't get it. In addition, as we talked about, Rick mentioned summer rec. Summer rec's going to be a little more difficult, I think, because kids share bats, balls, helmets. They're in the dugouts together. You have, I don't know if we have normally about 100 kids up there, but it's going to be real tough to social distance them at that point. So that's kind of the spiel, and feel free to ask questions as you go through your conversation.
Mike, I guess I will start. Is there a drop dead date in your mind when we have to make a decision on summer rec?
Summer rec, we haven't got any of the, summer rec usually runs from the end of school till the end of June. And we usually by now have all of the registrations out, collect the fee, things like that. We're moving into that time where we should be doing all that. If we don't do that and we wait till the 27th and the governor says we can have it, we're going to be moving into June, and in July is when they try to end it by the 1st of July because of vacations. So I think we're falling into that category now where we should either have it or cancel it. Lamar's has canceled their Little League season for the summer. The governor was asked today about high school baseball and softball, and she said she hasn't even talked to any of the high school association or anything about that. So that tells to me that there's no indication she's trying to get businesses open. She's not. They're not as concerned about the recreational things, obviously, because people don't need to go back to work. People need to go back to work and things like that. So we're falling into that on summer rec.
Is there an option to move summer rec back in the calendar, though? I mean, if vacations are going to look different this year and that kind of stuff, can we look at making a decision on summer rec after more time has passed when she makes a decision on high school softball and baseball? Could we say start at June 15 and run through the end of July instead?
If the staff is available, we can.
Okay.
I mean, at that point, do we have the staff to do it? Jesse Strong runs our summer rec program, and then he hires some high school kids to help him with that. So those are possibilities.
I mean, that would be my feeling on that in particular. As far as the pool is concerned, unfortunately, pools are a losing entity for cities typically anyways. I have absolutely no question in my mind about the ability our pool manager and the staff have to orchestrate and do different things with these challenges that are needed. My question is, if we get to a point at the end of May or it gets pushed back into June, how long do we keep these kids, quote unquote, on the payroll or holding on to what they're hoping to still be a job, and then it still might end up that we're closing anyways? So I'm not real excited about opening at this point in time because we don't have the extra guidelines from the governor, but I guess I'll wait for everybody else's opinion on that.
Well, this is Tim, and I can't see if the medical profession doesn't have any treatments, if we should even be discussing having this go yet. I mean, if the children aren't safe, I mean, it's one thing if parents and children go out together and do any activities on their own, but for us to be sponsoring anything when we don't, there's no, hospitals don't know how to treat this yet, and it just seems like a bad deal for the kids. They can't, I mean, especially like the We Care in the community center. I think we should definitely shut that until let the We Care kids use it, but don't rent anything until there's some treatment for people that get the disease. I mean, it's dangerous, right?
And I guess echoing that, my question is, if you open the pool and with contract tracing and that kind of stuff, if it's found out a kid is contracted COVID, how do they let everybody know that was at the pool and do all of that stuff too?
I'm not sure that they can even let that information out, Travis. I know there's been some people in the community that have tested positive for COVID-19 or any community, and I don't believe that our Department of Public Health or anybody lets that information out, so they can't go to somebody and say, did you have contact, or anybody that had contact quarantine themselves. I think they have privacy rights, and I think they trump everybody else's right to know.
Mike, this question's for you. On those chemicals, if we purchase those for this year, are they good for next year too if they're not used, or is there a shelf life on those? And my second thought is, Sioux Center, I know I talked to the city manager over there. This time they're still planning on opening up their pool at some point. I'm not sure what that'll look like, whether it'll just be the outside pool or inside pool, but I know that was the case over there. I did have an email from one of our citizens today, and I can share with you guys later, just, expressing her concern that, having activities for kids to do during the summer too. And I know we need to be careful at the same time, so.
Yeah, in our pool discussions with the area pools, I know Sioux Center is very eager to open. Matter of fact, they told me that if they could be only open for 30 days, they were going to do it. Obviously, I think it's a little bit different situation. They have this huge new water park over there, and so I think it's important that for them that they use it. I think we got to be mindful of the chemicals. I'm not positive what the shelf life is. Some of the chlorine that we could buy could be used at our water plant, but some of the other chemicals can't, and I'm not sure that the shelf life is going to be enough to get them through to next year. Right now, we got the pool stabilized with chlorine we had from last year, so we know the chlorine will last a year, but I'm not sure about some of the other chemicals and stabilizers they use. One of the big things we got to do right now is, if we're going to open, they have a chemical truck come in, dump chlorine into the pool. shock the pool basically, and then it takes about a week to stabilize that. So we've been holding off on doing that because obviously we don't want to spend the money if we can't open. So you know, it's just going to be a balance of are we all okay with putting the money into it with the possibility of not opening. Everybody's in the same boat. I know Iron, I talked to them today. They're talking to their council Monday. Hospers had said that their council is considering not opening, but some of them are definitely like, if we can open for a month, we're going to open. So, you know, the lifeguards, there is some work to be done. If they get done before the 27th, you know, we'll have to see how we can handle that as far as, you know, we thought there was some painting that could be done, things like that. So, you know, it's all up in the air.
Thank you.
Say, Mike, do you know if we were to buy the chemicals, would, you know, 50% of the season, would that be enough to really justify the expense, or do we have an idea of where that expense kind of bounces out?
No, I guess I haven't really done that. I mean, I know our pool guys have told Travis and I that when they do order for the season, it's usually about $5,000 worth of chemicals. But I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if they can order for half the season, or you know, and I'm not sure tonight that we have to make a decision on the pool. I think that it's a good conversation to have for not only council, but for everybody out there that watches the meetings, that this could very well be a reality of no pool. You know, to me, part of the biggest thing is we have, you know, a manager and a lifeguard that this is their summer employment. And, you know, you got to balance that, and you got to balance the safety of the kids. I don't think anybody's really going to fool themselves and think that every kid's going to be 6 foot apart from the other one, you know. So, yeah, I don't know. It's just a weird year. Like I said, I know I've talked to the lifeguards. They're willing to take on the extra responsibility. It's just, is the governor going to let us do it? Or when are they going to open it up? You know, if we can't open till the middle of June, you're looking at school right now. According to Mr. Brown, the calendar was set for August 25th start, but the governor has lifted the restriction on not letting them start early, so they can start early August. Mr. Brown said that they haven't set a date yet for sure if they would, but it wouldn't be before the 10th. So, you know, is a month and a half, 2 months worth it? I don't know.
I guess the nice option is we do have, if it's able to be open, a beach close by, which is nice. But if it's possible for us to kick the can down the road 2 weeks to make this decision, I would hope that we have a little more guidance on all of this stuff from the governor.
And we'll keep in contact with the other pools and Iowa Department of Public Health and do what they recommend. I think at this time, you know, we just keep moving towards opening, push off the chemical order as long as we can towards the end of the month, and tackle it at that point.
I would agree with that. This whole thing, it just seems like decisions are having to be made day by day, and it's hard when we're trying to plan for some of these things, but it's a hard decision to make on either side. So.
And I think as far as summer rec, I think I'll check with our people that run that. If they're able to hold strong and move back, we will. If they're not able to do it in July, I think we would just call it and not have it for the year. I see, you know, like I said, kids are going to be sharing baseball helmets. They're going to be sharing bats. They're going to be sharing a dugout. That, you know, to me, there's a lot more risk of transmission with that at this point. And seeing the other towns that are canceling it, I know most of the area towns, if baseball and softball in high school don't happen, they happen as well.
Mike, as we talked also on summer rec, and when you have the practices and the games and so forth, well, then you get the parents and the grandparents, you know, wanting to be a part of that session too, and maybe hard to social distance them with the bleachers that we have set up or those types of things.
Yeah, that's correct. I really, the social distancing, everybody's tired of hearing about it, but that's going to be with us throughout the summer no matter what we do. Until they come up with some kind of vaccine, social distancing is going to be the new norm. And so I think it wouldn't surprise me if there was no summer baseball or softball, and if they do, it wouldn't surprise me if they're not going to allow people to attend. You know, you look at even your pro sports teams, they're talking about having a football season with no fans in attendance. So I don't know why that wouldn't trickle down to our level as well.
Any other comments from council?
Maybe one other question. Can you describe maybe the means in which We Care uses the community center? Is it just no tables, free space to run around, or what
Exactly.
Kids are crawling on the rugs, they're having fun running around.
Yep.
Putting everything in their mouth like little kids do.
Yeah,
It's really entertaining to watch them.
Yeah, it's a play area.
okay. That's what I think. I didn't know if they used the restrooms at all, or if that was kind of contained off as well.
No, if little kids got to go potty, they'll go to the restroom there as well. It's different grades at different periods of time.
Well, then maybe at this point, we'll continue to monitor everything. Our staff does a nice job with that. And as someone mentioned, we're going to meet again in 2 weeks. Maybe we'll be able to get some more direction from those folks that are above, and maybe as Mike and the staff have done to interact with other communities to see what their thoughts are to implement with them and us. Any other discussion for agenda item number 11? And our thanks obviously to the staff for all the work that they do, and you know, the interior staff, that the front ladies and so forth, how they you know, accommodate customers at the front door and go out and visit with them and do it in a safe manner. So we appreciate everybody's work from the city of Hawarden in that regard. We have no wedding receptions or anything that we're transferring liquor license to, and so that's unfortunate for those folks that may have been planning those, which leads us to agenda item number 13, which is an adjournment, and then our next regular meeting will be May the 27th. My thanks to the staff and all of you folks on the council for accommodating yourselves to this type of a meeting. I think it works very nicely. We still have wonderful discussions, so I appreciate that. And Travis being the host, I would entertain a motion to adjourn this city council meeting.
This is Travis, so second.
Moved by Jen, seconded by Travis. All in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Go ahead and hit your leave button. Thank you very much. We're adjourned.
Bye.